Shalom. Shalom. All right. Shalom. As always, I would like to begin this lesson off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who've taught us all this truth in the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. I'm Shaquat from the GMS Dallas branch, coming back here with another lesson, Lord willing, is edifying to the hopeful elect. Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Barakatham, to you sincere Akyam, Wakwathyam, and a sincere shalom to you brothers that are out pushing this truth out on the highways and the byways and through the YouTube lessons, man. Shalom to you all. Lord willing, this lesson be edifying and exhorting to the elect. All right, so without further ado, we're going to get into this lesson really quickly. Daniel 7. Now, I may or may not get through the whole chapter in this one. If not, I'll just do a part 2. Right? Probably won't get through the whole chapter on this first go round, but we're gonna get through the thick of it pretty much. Let's see. Yeah, it did take it with me. Okay, great. So we're gonna just be going into Daniel 7. All right. Then Lord willing, on another day, maybe I'll go through Daniel 8, Lord willing. The Lord prevails through the spirit, just going through, breakdowns. Ultimately I just want to start getting into the, doing lessons on the breakdowns, all this stuff. I don't think I ever did a lesson on Daniel 7. So I was like, let me do one. So all right, so we're here at Daniel 7, and we're going to start at verse 1. This is the vision of the four beasts. All right, you see another vision of you see the vision of the four beasts also spoken about. And from the king's vision, King Nebuchadnezzar, because ultimately this is Daniel's vision. All right. But in Daniel 2, I was trying to think of what I wanted to say. Nebuchadnezzar, right, had a vision about these same beasts. Right. So we're going to start at verse 1. That's where you had a statue at. All right, so Daniel 7:1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Now, ultimately, when you get to the end of this chapter, when we hit that verse, eventually it's going to basically explain that Daniel, he was troubled because he didn't understand his vision. But we now do understand these visions. You understand? We understand what these visions that the prophets that were having, in the ancient world couldn't understand. Now we are those same prophets back, and we could break those visions down. So we are smarter, wiser, and more knowledgeable than the prophets of old. All right, and that's not like a, oh, see, you being proud. No, how are we going to be proud against ourselves? We were them. Those prophets were us. We're back in the reincarnation. Now we may not know exactly who is who. You may be able to speculate and be able to possibly point out maybe that's him, but nonetheless, we're back. You understand? So it's not like being proud against ourselves. The Lord just gave those visions weren't meant to be understood by the prophets at that time when they were given to him. But now we're here at the end of the end, able to break these visions down. Right? So it says, then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. All right, and that great sea is talking about the, if I'm not mistaken, it's talking about the Mediterranean, or I believe it's the Mediterranean. I said it's been a minute since I went over that. Give me one moment. Yeah, it's talking about the Mediterranean Sea. I just have to fact check myself and make sure I was correct. So yeah, it's talking about the Mediterranean Sea. All right, like I said, it's been some years since I went over this. So bear with me. I may be a little rusty, but I was right. Wadi Abashim Shai. So that great sea is talking about the Mediterranean Sea. All right. Now it says, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another, Now, these four beasts that it's about to get to is four major empires that was set to rule in this first Earth age. Now, that does not mean that other empires, that were lesser than didn't rule. That doesn't mean that. It were other empires, like what's not going to be mentioned in this chapter. You had Babel, which was ruled by the Canaanites. You have Sodom and Gomorrah, which was ruled by the Canaanites, and a neighboring three cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. You also had Egypt, which were ruled by the Egyptians, the Mizraimites, right? Mizraimites, right? So you had other empires that just weren't mentioned here. You had other smaller empires and rulerships that also are not mentioned here, but these are the four major empires. you know, Add a fifth one on concerning, the empire, the revived Roman Empire, which is where we're at now, spearheaded by America. So these are the four major empires plus one, all right, that were set to rule in this first Earth age. You understand? So that's what this is going into. Now it says diverse one from another because they were all different in some way, shape, or form. Especially the fourth beast, which is going to get into here shortly in verse 7. All right, so it says, verse 4, the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. All right, now let's pause there. Now, what is this talking about? A lion with eagle's wings. This is going into the Assyrian Empire. All right, which was the first major empire, which technically five empires are mentioned here. Five are mentioned here. But when you put the dots together of the four, it's going to be Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome. All right. So, but this right here is talking about the Assyrian Empire. And if you don't know about the Assyrians are the ones who came down, who came in, and what you call it, and brain fart, and took over the Northern Kingdom. All right, they took down the Northern Kingdom. All right. So let me look something up here on my phone first, just to see if it what a show, and I'll look it up on the computer. So let me see. All right, let me put that in here. So let's go over here. Let's go right here. Move this over here. All right. Uh, and if you don't know, all right, a lion with eagle's wings is talking about a griffin. Okay, so we're gonna look up that a griffin. It's gonna show you what it looks like. This is what it's talking about. A lion. This shit don't look like one. Hold on. But that's what it's talking about. A griffin, though. There you go. A lion with eagle's wings. Kind of got an eagle's face as well. You understand? Or type this in. Show you a lion with eagle's wings, but really it looks like what it showed in the last image of a griffin. You understand? So what empire began art? Begin using art. I'm trying to see how to word this. Probably not word it well, but oh well. Fuck it. We ball. I just want to see if it's gonna tell me. Let's see, this did pop up. What did it say? No, nigga, it said something else before I fucking close this bitch. Nah, it ain't gonna show. Hold on, man. Bear with me. All right. Probably should have set these images up beforehand to see if it would say what it would say, but Okay, so ancient Mesopotamia is one of them. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so I just want to show you that this is Assyrian artwork. All right, this is what the Assyrians used very heavily in their artwork. And then it got passed down to the Babylonians, who also used it very heavily in their artwork, which the Babylonians were descendants of the Assyrians, because Nebuchadnezzar, the first king of Babylon, he was a descendant, a direct descendant of the Assyrians. Okay. So the Babylonians were Assyrians ultimately. They just a different, they broke off and changed the name and all that stuff. Same people though, right? And the Assyrians were ruled by the Ishmaelites. Okay, the Assyrian and Babylonians, that both those empires were Ishmaelite rulerships, all right, or the Iraqians and stuff like that. That's Ishmael, all right. But anyway, it says ancient Mesopotamia. So it did. I just wanted to see if it would mention one, and that was the Assyrians, all right, Mesopotamia and all that, just to show you, all right. Jay crazy. But anyway, so Jake sent a text, so I got distracted. But anyway, so just to show you that, let's go back over here. So the first was like a lion that had eagle's wings that's going into the Assyrian Empire. And that was a very great empire, very major, massive empire. And they did a lot of damage, when they were in rulership. All right. And it says, I beheld to the wings thereof were plucked. It says, and I beheld to the wings thereof were plucked. Now, what is this going into? Well, let's see. And it says, and it was lifted up from the earth. Okay, so it got plucked up and was lifted up from the earth. It's talking about the Babylonians coming in or conquering this. Let me put this phone on D&D. I'm sorry. It's just distracting the fuck out of me. So like it, keep on buzzing. It's probably gonna keep buzzing too, and I put on do not disturb. But it says, and I beheld to the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth. Now this is going into the Babylonians coming in and overtaking the Assyrians. All right. And like I said, they're the same people, right? But they came in and overtook the Assyrians. That was the next one up, because Assyria took rulership and they took down the northern kingdom. You start seeing that around Second Kings, the 6th chapter, and all throughout the Second Kings and stuff like that. And you see more info about it in the Chronicles and stuff like that. And then also, it was being prophesied by Elijah that would happen. Elijah was prophesying, saying the Assyrians will come and conquer the northern kingdom. He was prophesying to that. Elijah the prophet, which we know he came back in the reincarnation as John the Baptist, and he also came back after that as we believe to be Elder, Abba Bivens. All right, the Abba Bivens, which is I forgot what Bivens mean, but Abba means father. All right, so there you go, and he came up, with the word through the spirit of power Yahweh Shemal Shai in the late 60s. All right, before being murdered by Muslims. All right, you know the history. Well, anyway, we believe that was John the Baptist, ultimately Elijah coming back in the reincarnation. All right, because when you go into that Malachi 4 and 6, I believe it's the 6th verse, but it's definitely Malachi 4, which is the last book, the last chapter of the Old Testament before jumping into the Apocrypha, then the New Testament. All right, that stated that John the Baptist, actually, let's go there really quickly. We'll come back. Malachi, I'm talking about John the Baptist. I meant to say Elijah. Salakia. Right here. Malachi 4 and 5 through 6. So it says, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. All right, now this is ultimately talking about Elijah coming in to coming back as John the Baptist to usher Yahweh Shai in. That's what this is going into, to turn the heart of the fathers to the children and the heart of the children to their fathers. So that's ultimately going into him ushering Yahweh Shai in, the ushering in of the Messiah. All right. That was the first time he would come. But he will also come again, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And when you get up here again, for the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the great and dreadful day of the Lord never happened during the Roman Empire when Yahweh Shai came on the scene. So that was the first time he came back as John the Baptist to usher in Yahweh Shai to lay out the red carpet for the first coming of Yahweh Shai. Then he would come back a second time, which is, we believe, that was Elder Abba Bivens, when he would come back as a second time before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, which is the second coming of Yahweh Shai. So he would come in, usher Yahweh Shai in his first coming, and usher him in his second coming. All right, which will be the great and dreadful day. All right. But anyway, Elijah prophesied of the Assyrians coming down on the northern kingdom. But this is going into the Babylonians coming in and taking over the Assyrians. So let's keep going. And made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Now, this man is talking about King Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadnezzar, however you like to pronounce it. But that was the first king of Babylon. All right. And Daniel and him have great history together. But anyway, it says, and behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear. All right, now let's pause there. What beast is this talking about? This is talking about the Medes and the Persians, or the Persians and the Medes, or just to say it plainly, the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, which this empire was ruled by the Elamites. All right, the Elamites. Actually, it's been documented, even though the names, Esau has changed the names today to try to throw off prophecy and throw everything out of its course and change history. But Iran has been documented in history. If you do a little research, it doesn't take much research to find this. But Iran is Persia. That's Persia. Okay. Now you still have a lot of people today that are from Iran that say I'm Persian. They'd be like, I'm Persian. Where are you from? Iran. Or, so they say that. So, they still consider themselves the Persians. And the Medes is just they're also Elamites. The Medes are also Elamites, okay? But anyway, it says the second like unto a bear, that's going into the Medo-Persian Empire, which was ran by the Elamites. So you had the Ishmaelites, and you had the Elamites, all right? And then it says, and it raised up itself on one side. Now, what does that mean? That means the Persians. So first the Medes came into power. The Medes originally took over the Babylonians, and the Persians joined rulership, because they're the same people ultimately. But the Persians ended up being stronger than the Medes. All right. So the Persians basically overtook the Medes. So it was basically really emphasis on the Medo-Persian Empire. They were stronger than the Medes, even though they were the same people, but different. They were slightly in different areas geographically. But same people, same ones in rulership ultimately, but the Persians were greater. All right. They were greater. So they overtook them. But, they were still in joint rulership because they are the same people, but the Persians were stronger. Hope that wasn't too many words. But it says, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. All right. Those 3 ribs are going into what they conquered, because they took over a lot of shit, which is what it's going to get into when it says, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh, because they was straight conquering shit. They were a force to be reckoned with. As you see, each kingdom got stronger and stronger. Each kingdom got stronger and stronger because it learned from each of the past kingdoms' mistakes. So the Babylonians were stronger than the Assyrians. The Persians and the Medes were stronger than the Babylonians, and so on and so forth, right? Now, like I was saying, the 3 ribs is talking about what the Medo-Persian Empire conquered to get into rulership. So first I'm trying to think of what directions they went. I think they went eastward, if I'm not mistaken. No, they didn't go eastward, Salakia. They went, because they're in the east. They went westward, northward, and then they went southward. All right, so they originally went west first, and they conquered the Babylonians. Then they went northward, and then they took out. Then they went and conquered the Libyans, or not the Libyans, the Lydians. So Lydia, and then they went south and took and conquered Egypt. All right, so that's the three rivers that it's talking about. All right, just to show you on the map. All right, get a ancient map just in case. Ancient world map. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm about to just look up a regular map. Yeah, I'm about to look up a regular map. This shit just pissed me off. Slovakia. Hmm. This should do the trick. I'm trying to zoom in some more Slovakia. This bitch is not going there no more. Oh my goodness. It fucking won't go in anymore. Good. Good God. Trying to zoom in some more so I could pinpoint, because this is around where the Persians and the Medes were. This is Persia right here. All right. Um, fuck is Lydia at? This shit, I can't see nothing. Shit, all blurred on my side. I don't know if it's the same for y'all. That's why I tried to look up an ancient map. Did it actually say Babylon? But nonetheless, they went westward. Babylon was located somewhere in this area, because like I said, the so Babylon will be in this region right here, even though it don't say it, okay? Because like I said, the Iraqis and Syrians and all that stuff, Turkey. Well, I don't know if Turkey was involved either, so don't quote me on that one. But around this area, that's where the Babylonians and the Syrians were. Same people, right? So they went westward first, west, conquered them, and then they went northward, somewhere northward. Where the fuck is Lydia? I haven't looked at a map to find this shit in a while. Good God damn it, bitch. This finna piss me off. But then they went southward. As you see, Egypt is south of where Babylon was, and they conquered Egypt. Where the fuck is Lydia? This finna piss, this finna piss me off. I'm finna just look up Lydia on the world map. I ain't got time for this Esau bullshit. So I must have been overlooking this bitch the whole time. I was. But anyway, Iran right here. So Persia came westward, conquered Babylon, then went northward, conquered Lydia, because you see it's slightly north to Babylon, then went southward and conquered Egypt. All right, just to show you on the map. So Salakia for the technical difficulties. All right. Now let's go back. I just wanted to make sure. All right, let's go back. So where are we at? Verse 5. So we read that. All right, so let's go down. And it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. Now, this is going into the Grecian Empire. So the Greeks came in and conquered the Persians and the Medes, and they really actually conquered the whole known world at that time. They came into power very quickly. This leopard is even more in particular going into Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Greek, or Alexander the Freak, because that nigga was a freak in the worst way possible. All right. So before I go on, all right, the leopard, you could go to Daniel 8 even, and then it goes into it. The vision of the ram, all right, and the goat, okay, and that ram, if I'm not mistaken, is going into the Persians and the Medes. and then that goat is going into Alexander the Great. You understand? So let's see where I want to go to. That little horn is going into Alexander, but that's not where I want to go. But that is going into Alexander, that little horn. Like I said, bear with me, I'm rusty. That's why you got to go over this stuff every once in a while to get it back. But that little horn is going into Alexander. But let me go down. See the ram's identity. All right, so let's start here at verse 20. Daniel 8 and 20, the ram's identity. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. You understand? And the last king of the Medes and the Persians, the last king was Darius. All right. Forgot what number Darius, because he was a bunch of Dariuses in his line, but I don't think he was Darius the first. It was Darius son, but it should say it when we go to first Maccabees 1. But that's what that's going into. And it literally said it. So that made it easy. And it says the goat, like I was saying, the goat is going into Alexander the Great, more specifically the little horn. So it says, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, which is talking about who? Well, let's keep going. And the great horn, so that great horn, which is what that little horn was going into right here. Now it's coming back. It's coming back now. You just gotta what the scriptures say, you gotta stir up that pure mind by way of remembrance. But anyway, now it says and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now, who was the first king of Greece? Well, let's look it up. Who was the first king of Greece? Just a simple Google search will tell you. Now I know they fucking lying. I know you fucking lying. This shit lying. Let's auto. This nigga got something to do with Alex, but no, this is wrong. Now they're trying to bullshit me. Hold on. Esau throwing monkey wrenches. This shit used to not be like this. You didn't used to have to do all this. It's Alexander the Great, the first king. See what it say. What? Come on, don't do me like this. You failing me now, Google. This shit used to be easy Google searches. You failing me. I'm gonna prove it through the scriptures anyway. The scriptures history don't miss. But I just want Google to tell me, bitch ass. Because it's saying he the king of Macedon. Bitch, that was the Greeks. All right, now we know the ancient Greeks were the Japhites, just like the ancient Romans were the Japhites. But nonetheless, when the Greek Empire was at its full, was a major root power, that was the Edomites. Why they fucking playing with me? Let me do this. See how they do that shit? Look, I got it to tell on itself without even trying to, without meaning to do it. This didn't mean to tell on itself, but I got it to do it. Look how they try to make shit hard to do. You knew what the fuck I'm talking about. Alexander the Great was not, it says, not the first king of a powerhouse version of Greece? Yes, he was, because it's literally about to contradict itself in the next sentence. Look at this dickhead. Esau, you got to try harder than that, bitch. It says, but he was the first ruler to unite and expand the Greek world. What the fuck? He wasn't the first king of the Middle, but he was the first ruler to do the powerhouse version of Greek. See this shit? Man, this shit vexing. Anyway, but I got the answer out of it. He was the first ruler to unite and expand the Greek world into a vast empire that included all of Greece and much of the known world. All right. So there you go. I got the damn shit to snitch on itself. All right. Finally. See how you got a corner Google, and you got, just like you got a corner the AI, because this is the AI. Copilot is the AI version for the Windows, and I'm on the Windows computer right now, and using the Windows, shit. But there you go. I cornered it. Got my answer. Now it says, I'm gonna keep going. When Alexander became the first king of Macedon, because his father was a Macedonian, but ultimately they're what would be known as the Greeks, the powerhouse version of the Greeks. In 336 BC, he inherited a kingdom to the north of Greece that was militarily powerful, but politically and culturally less prominent among the Greek city-states. His father, Philip II, which actually hated his ass, if you look into the history, Philip hated Alexander because he learned of the prophecy of, Alexander coming up and, taking over everything, and he hated that because he wished it was him. So that nigga hated that nigga. I think he even, you look in the history, don't quote me, I think he even wanted to kill that nigga or tried to, but nonetheless, don't quote me, but you do the research on yourself and, see if I'm right or wrong on that. But the nigga hated him nonetheless. Had already begun to modernize Macedon and integrate it into Greek political life. But Alexander took that further. In 335 BC, he was elected Strategos Autocrator of Greece, supreme commander of the Hellenic League by the Greek city-states, giving him de facto control over all of Greece. So there you go. So see, he shouldn't have bucketed on himself. You're contradicting yourself. Alexander then launched a series of campaigns that began with the conquest of the Persian Empire in 334 BC. So it's almost like the precepts go hand in hand. It's almost like the scriptures lining up with what's documented right here in history, because the scriptures are historical accounts. They're real life historical accounts. And it says, over the next decade, he defeated the Persian forces at battles such as Issus and Gaugamela, overthrew in Achaemenid, overthrew the Achaemenid Empire, however you pronounce that shit, and brought Greece's northern kingdom to the front of the world affairs. By the time of his death in 323 BC, his empire stretched from Greece to northwestern India, all right, making him the first ruler to unite the Greek world under a single military and political authority. So while there was no powerhouse version of Greece before him, see, Alexander, so Greece was existing before him. We know that. First of all, the Japhites were the original Greeks. When you look into the history, the Japhites are the islanders, like your Samoans and shit like that. But as Esau does, he always overtakes everything that's not his, and he made himself the Greeks, right? So anyway, so he trying to be super technical, but they knew what I was trying to get at, and they gave me the answer anyway, bitch ass. But it says, let's see, Alexander was the first to unify and dominate the entire Greek world. So he was the first, like I said, including the Macedonian kingdom, and to project that power across Asia and into India. Like I said, they went westward, all right, because those are technically Indians too, them Arabs, but they're different. But it says, and they really Indians, because the word Indian means savage. Them niggas real savage. Them Arabs is real savages. Them niggas, boy, them niggas savages. It say something along those lines in Second Edges 15. Them niggas is savages. Uh, them niggas could get dirty, not in a good way. But they definitely gonna be taskmasters alongside Ham in the kingdom, for me at least. This created the Hellenistic world where Greek culture and political organizations spread far beyond the Greek peninsula. All right, Hellenistic. All right, that goes into Hellenization. That goes into the, overtaking of the Greeks. Basically, uh, it'll tell you it better than I can. Relating to the Greek history, language, and culture, from the death of Alexander the Great to the defeat of Cleopatra and Mark Antony by Octave, whatever. During this period, Greek culture flourished, spreading through the Mediterranean and into the Near East and Asia, and centering on Alexandria in Egypt and Pergamum in Turkey. Ultimately, this when the Greek culture flourished, like it said, in simpler terms, in layman's terms. And being Hellenized meaning you were forced into that. All right, you were forced into it. So anyway, we got what we needed out of that bitch, nigga. But let's go back over here to Daniel 8, and where was I at? Verse 21. Let's read it again. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king, which is going into Alexander the Great. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up. All right, now we're gonna come back to this verse 22 when we move on to the next verse in Daniel 7. So let's actually span this and make this another page so I can have two of these. We can go back to Daniel 7. Because we're gonna come back to that 22nd verse because it goes into the second part of Daniel 7 and 6. So now let's go over to the first Maccabees just to show you the history, the biblical history, because it's documented in the Bible. All right, that's why a lot of Christians have a hard time understanding that neither Jew nor Greek all throughout the New Testament, because you go from the book of Malachi, which is when the Medes and the Persians was ruling, and then you jump all the way to the book of Matthew when the Romans are in rulership. Well, where the fuck is the Greek history? Where is the Greek history at? Where's the Grecian history? Nowhere to be found, which is why that leads a lot of confusion. All right. The first and the second Maccabees goes into the Greek history. All right, these are the last two books of the Apocrypha. It goes into that Greek history. And Apocrypha means hidden books. And it was taken out in the 1600s, I want to say 16 or 1700s, by this one group. Let me see. Let's look up and see if we can find that group real quick. What group took the Apocrypha out of the Bible? Let me do this. And when? Oh shit. My shit about to. Hold on. All right, Salakia. All right, so got the charge. I ain't want the shit to die on me. So we back over here at First Maccabees 1. All right, because you skip on doing. That's what I was doing. The Westminster Confession of Faith took a harder line under the Archbishop of Canterbury. They officially removed the Apocrypha from the canon of the English Bible, which that canon mean when the niggas say it's not canon, meaning it's not really real. It's not a part of the Bible. They removed it, right? And it doesn't say what the group was actually called, but if a brother knows the name of the actual group, I always fucking forget. Because I be saying the Bible destruction, but that's not the name of the group. I know that's going into something else. So if a brother know comments, Bible Kashaf for edification's sake and for my sake, I always forget that. But anyway, this was takes us to the Apocrypha, and you actually understand what it's going into, and you understand what the characters are at play. You're gonna be able to connect the dots and see who the damn devil is. All right. So going back over here, all right. So this is First Maccabees 1, and the Maccabees was written by certain scribes that were around at that time, just documenting history, and it's named Maccabees because you have a group of Israelites, more specifically Jews, the Southern Kingdom, Judah, Benjamin, Levi, who were called the Maccabeans. All right, the Maccabeans. All right, when you look into what that means, it's another name that they called themselves also. The goddamn fuck, the Assyrians. They also call themselves that too. But definition of Maccabees. Maccabee today, a member or follower of the family of the Jew, not Jewish, but Jew leader Judas Maccabeus, all right, which is spoken about all throughout First and Second Maccabees. He's spoken of too, but mainly the First Maccabees. All right, before his death and before the succeeding of, I believe, his younger brother. Forgot his name, but it goes into all that in the Maccabees. So it's a good read. It's 31 total books. I believe the first Maccabees is 15 books, the second is 16. If I'm wrong, it's in reverse then, but nonetheless, it's 31 total books. Good read, you know. But allegedly it's 4 books. Allegedly it's 4 of the Maccabees, but we only have access to 2. So I don't know about them other 2. So, but what we have is access to 2 book of Maccabees. I don't know about third and the fourth, none of that shit. That may be pseudepigrapha right now. That may be a third, fourth, fifth Maccabees, but we don't know. We'll get access to that in the kingdom if that be so. All right. But we have access to what we need, these 80 books that are fit for salvation. If there is a third, fourth, and fifth Maccabees, we don't have access to it now. Clearly, it's not needed for salvation. We will get that history in the kingdom. All right. Just like the book of Enoch and all that shit. We'll get that history in the kingdom. You have a lot of books that were written by super minor prophets that aren't in the Bible, but it's not needed for salvation. We get it in the kingdom, right? These 80 books is all we need for salvation. That's what the Lord left us with. He preserved that for salvation's sake. But yeah, so it just meant a follower of Judas Maccabeus. All right. Now, I'm going to go to, and the Assyrians mean something similar. Got the actual meaning. It may be the same damn thing. Let me see. Never looked into the definition of it. It said we're a group of devout Jews who opposed the Hellenistic influence. So basically, same thing. Maccabean revolt, which was led by Judas. All right. See, they are portrayed as followers of Judas. So same thing, different name, but the Assyrians sound harder in my opinion. Yeah, I'm an Assyrian nigga. And in the spirit, man, in the spirit, we are Assyrians. We are the Assyrians of today because we are opposed to this bullshit philosophy that Esau has spread throughout the four corners of the earth. And these are the same people that did rule the Greek Empire. So the Assyrians back, just spiritual. We ain't getting carnal with it. All right, we ain't getting carnal with it. Until the Lord allows us to. Jeremiah 16:16. Jeremiah, where it goes into we the Lord's battle axe and weapons of war. All that. We ain't doing none carnal shit yet, Esau. So but in due time, fuck nigga. So first Maccabees 1:1, and it happened. After that, Alexander, oh shit, and we just read the history on Google. Alexander, son of Philip, like we read on Google, the Macedonian, like we read. You see the boy, this only history we need, my boy. This is all we need. Who came out of the land of Chetam, has smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes. So he came and conquered the Persians and the Medes. All right, who the king at that time was Darius, like I mentioned up here. All right. Actually, it mentioned in the Google search, Salakia. But there you go. And who was that? Even if you look this up, who was the last ruler of Persia and Mede? I should have said Medium, but Midian. See, the last ruler was Darius. All right. So there you go. Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. What did it say over here in Daniel 7? Or Slakia, Daniel 8, forgive me. It says, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. So who was the first king? He reigned first over Greece. Alexander the Great. And that's the reason he was called the Great, because it only took him 12 years to conquer this shit. And let's do a Google search before we read the scriptures, just to show you the scriptures hit every time. How long did it take Alexander to conquer the world? Approximately 13 years, but it was 12 years. If you just go, because it never actually hit, it wasn't a full 13, so it was 12 years, like I said. All right. And when you go over here, let's keep going. Give you history. You gotta understand the history to know the mystery. Or to understand the history, you gotta know the mystery. To understand the history, you gotta know. How the saying go? We say it all the time, us Gray Millstone. I ain't said it in a while. You gotta know the mystery to understand the history. Or to understand the history, you gotta know the mystery. It goes something like that. Brother, put it in the conversation. I ain't said it so long. All right, but anyway, first Maccabees 1:2, and it says, and made many wars. He made many wars and won many strongholds, which is what it was saying in the Google search, and slew the kings of the earth. He was just conquering shit. I mean, straight conquering, nigga. All right. And it says, and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. All right, so he felt real great, real powerful, because he was taking over everything. But the only reason he was able to do all that in such a short span of time and so effortlessly is because it was prophecy. The Lord allowed it because that was prophecy. All right, that was prophecy. Because remember, Daniel, where was Daniel at? Daniel was located in the Babylonian Empire. So that was before the Medes and the Persians took over. That was before the Greeks, before the Romans. So all this stuff is being prophesied before any of this. All right? It was in prophecy. That's like what the Lord said in Isaiah 46:10. I believe it's there, but he said he has set things, appointed things that have not yet been done, roughly paraphrasing. So there's there's an account of that. All right. So whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up, he became very prideful. And them niggas, them Grecians was weird as fuck. They was out there on the battlefield slaying niggas booty butt naked. I'm not lying. That's where you get the whole gymnasium shit from. gymnos. That's a Greek word. It goes back to the Greek word gymnos, which means naked. Them niggas is weird, man. Them niggas is crazy. The Romans too, because that's why you it's called the Greco-Roman Empire. Same people, weirdos, just like today. This shit weird. It says, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and the nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. So he took over and everybody became a tributary unto him. All right, because they were under his rule. He took everything over, the known world at that time. Right. And also, we also saw this in the Google search. He had great military power. Okay. And it goes on, it says, and after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants. All right. Now we'll stop there. All right. We'll pause there. Now let me see. All right. So I'm going to pause and leave it there. All right. So now we're going to read. Let's see. We're going to read this right here, and then we'll stop at verse 7. And then I'm going to end it off, and then we're going to resume at verse 7. All right. So back in Daniel 7 and 6, it says, well, we start at the top. After this, I beheld and lo, another like a leopard. We went into that, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now, these 4 heads are talking about, because Alexander had a lot of generals. He had many generals, but he had 4 top generals. The names being Seleucus, um, Ptolemy, Lysam. Oh, damn, it's been a while. Seleucus and Ptolemy for sure. I don't remember all of them. Let me look it up. It's been a while, like I said, but I know Ptolemy and Seleucus were some 4 top generals of Alexander the Great. Ptolemy, Seleucus, yep, Lysimachus, and it's not Antigonus. It's somebody else. It's not him. That's wrong. Uh, so I had right Lysimachus, so I did mention him. Ptolemy and Seleucus, but no, it was not Antigonus. It was somebody else. I don't fucking remember. It wasn't him. Let me see if I got it in my notes. It was not him though. It was not Antigonus. So just bear with me a moment. Oh, it's Salakia. God damn. I don't want to be spreading, going off. Salakia. The little horn. The little horn. That's not Alexander. Forgive me. Forgive me. I told you I'm rusty. The little horn is going into Antiochus Epiphany. It clicked. It came back. That's going into Antiochus Epiphany. I know what I said earlier. Forgive me. The little horn is going into Antiochus Epiphany. I'm like, something don't sit right with me saying Alexander. That's going into Antiochus Epiphany, Salakia, which that's also he's also spoken of throughout the Maccabees. All right, that's going into Antiochus Epiphany or Antiochus Epiphanes. All right, so Salakia, please forgive me for going off on that one, Salakia. But anyway, why do Yabashir and Shaf allow me to catch that? Cassander. Yeah, it's Cassander. All right, Cassander. So Ptolemy, Seleucus, Cassander, and Lysimachus. All right. So let's see. Yep, Cassander. So yeah, man, I'm gonna just end it off there. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna just start at verse 6 where I'm leaving off about the four generals. All right, so I'm gonna leave everything here so we can come back to it. So Salakia. But it's Cassander, Seleucus, Lysimaeus, and Ptolemy. All right. And so once again, Salakia for that Daniel 8, that little horn. That little horn is Antiochus Epiphanes. Salakia. Like I said, I'm rusty. That's why we got to keep going over this. But anyway, I'm ended off there. Lord willing, I'll come back with a part two and may need a part three as long as this is taken. So, Lord willing, this is edifying. I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem HaKadosh, double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who've taught us all this truth in the spirit and power, Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai. And until next time, Baba Bo, Kwame Yasharala, Gadol Abadium, Laba Bo, Hagadol, Yahweh Har, Wahabathum. Until next time, I would like to say unto you all, Shabbat. It's like it ain't the Sabbath, but Shalom. What do y'all